All right, so if you don't know who I am, my name is Nicole Block. I'm a teacher here. This is my third year at Moore Park College, and before this, I spent about 15 years in nonfiction as a line producer. And today we're going to talk to 8 professionals. The first one is Celia Bonaducci. Everybody give her a big round of applause. I'm going to introduce her. She has the coolest day job. She's a field producer on HGTV's House Hunters. Her credits include other HGTV shows, including Tiny House Hunters, Where Are They Now, and ABC's Extreme Makeover Home Edition. She was also a coordinator at Nickelodeon Animation, overseeing the writers for Hey Arnold and Rocko's Modern Life. I love this last sentence. She left animation for lifestyle programming, which when she couldn't understand why Nickelodeon would buy a bizarre show called SpongeBob SquarePants. Please welcome Celia. Our next guest today is Lisa Fisco. Give her a round of applause. Lisa Fisco is a 2-time Emmy Award-winning producer who graduated from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and has worked for NBC, CBS, and ABC. She completed internships at CBS and ABC to get her her first job at ABC, where she worked for close to 20 years. She produced everything from town hall meetings with U.S. presidents to taping bank robbers for the news department. Her credits also include Roseanne, Lisa, and The Dr. Laura Show. She is now working with women in media and anti-aging and getting the word out that today's woman is indeed more powerful than ever. Our next guest is Miriam Kim. Miriam has over 15 years of experience working in narrative episodic television as an editor and an assistant editor. Some of her credits include Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams for Amazon, Bloodline for Netflix, Revenge for ABC, and The Newsroom for HBO. She most recently worked on Ray Donovan for Showtime, to which she'll return this year for season 7. She also has experience in documentaries, and she edited the film Lost Continent of the Pacific for the National Geographic Channel. Miriam holds a BA from Columbia University and an MFA in film production from the University of Southern California. Please welcome Miriam. Gary Moy, come on down. Welcome, Gary. Gary is a seasoned Hollywood animal trainer of 24 years. He also worked and managed animal shows at Universal Studios Hollywood and Osaka, Japan. Gary graduated from Chapman University's Film School in 2002 and also holds 2 degrees from the University of California, Berkeley. Please welcome Gary. And Kelly Roy. Kelly has been casting for 14 years, working on various films and TV shows. Some of her many credits include Aquaman, The Haunting of Hill House, Insidious 1 and 2, The Conjuring 1 and 2, Furious 7, Escape Plan, Oculus, Gerald's Game, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot, My Spy, and Dr. Sleep. Welcome, Kelly Roy. And Natalie Shomas. Natalie is a former Moore Park College student and currently works as a production coordinator and production supervisor for projects across the industry, including film, television, live streaming, and commercials. Her highlights include Kanye West, Ye and Kids See Ghosts album release parties, blind spotting screening and cast and crew Q&A at the ArcLight, Mac Miller tribute live stream, American Horror Story Apocalypse premiere live stream, and Endless Summer on Snapchat. Please welcome Natalie. And Gary Schultz. After leaving Moore Park College with an AS degree in 1975, Gary Schultz pursued a 40-year career in television production on 3 coasts. His work includes technical directing over 10,000 hours of national, regional, and local news, entertainment and sports programs for networks, production companies, and television stations, including network-owned affiliates like ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS. And these productions have earned multiple Emmy, AFI, ACT, and Peabody Awards, among others. Welcome, Gary Schultz. And Carl DiStefano. Welcome, Carl. Carl has been in the entertainment industry for 22 years. He spent the first 14 and a half years at Sony Pictures Entertainment working in the set lighting department as a union member of Local 728 before moving into a management role as Director of Operations. In 2011, he became the Executive Director of Set Lighting and Grip Sales and Operations at Paramount Pictures. Welcome, Carl. So we're just going to jump right in and get started and ask each of you, what is your most recent job title? And please explain a few of the job duties you have in that capacity, just to kind of explain what that job does. Celia, we're going to go like this in a row.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we good?
Yeah, I think it's a 4-finger thing, is what I'm told. As long as it's 4 fingers away
Okay.
from your mouth.
I am a field producer for House Hunters. So my job starts after the storyline for any given episode has been put together. I get on a plane and I head out anywhere in the United States, because I don't do House Hunters International. And I guide house hunters and an agent, a real estate agent, through the process of looking at houses and buying one.
And you direct the camera operator and the sound crew and...
In theory.
Great, thank you. Gary?
I'm a technical director, and if any of you have seen a control room that looks like that.
Hold it close to your mouth, the microphone.
If any of you have seen a control room that looks like that, that's where I lived most of my last 40 years. Switching crew chief and I don't know if you've heard the term EIC, engineer in charge of everything in a modern live tape control room or live control room. And a lot of fun, a lot of monitors, a lot of adrenaline, and that was it.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm currently working with a producing publishing house, and our focus is on the beauty industry currently right now, which is a little bit different from what I've done my entire life, was produce network TV. But mainly what I do is come up with ideas, story ideas, a lot of writing, and I travel the country for women exploring different beauty angles. So that's what I'm currently doing.
Hello, I work in editing for episodic TV, and I was working on Ray Donovan this past season, and that's what I'm going to be going back to. Basically, what happens is that we get the material as it's shot every day. After the end of the day, the material gets processed. It comes to us in editorial. They're currently shooting in New York, but we work out of LA. We use Avids, that's the editing system that we work with, and we get the material, and the job of the editors is to keep editing along with the shooting. So if an episode takes 14 days to shoot, for instance, by the following day, the material that was shot the previous day should at least have a semblance of an assembly. And there is it's almost, in other words, it is the film industry, so there is procedures that are followed very systematically. So first the editor puts an assembly together, then the director comes in and does his own or her own pass, and then the producers take over, and then everything is done. And right now in the show that I work on, there are 3 teams of editor and assistant editor who rotate. So it will be first team of editors, second team gets episode 2, then third team gets episode 3, and then it loops up again so that everything gets done in a timely fashion.
My current job is at the zoo, just over there. But my most recent entertainment job was coordinating animals for a movie called Birds of Prey. It's the Harley Quinn sequel. And so now I have to be really careful to not compromise my NDA. But
Why don't you explain to them what an NDA is?
oh, it's a non-disclosure agreement where you have to sign that you will not disclose details of what the movie's going to be. Comes out in 2020, I believe. But there are certain things I can't say. So we coordinated animals for it. So I was involved in all aspects of pre-production in terms of choosing what animals are going to be in the movie, and in what capacity and what the housing would be on the sets. So you're working with all the different departments like set deck and production design, and a lot of visual effects. I could say that? Yes, visual effects. And then the actual production of the movie and how much time we need to train the animals that are actually performing, and like that. The company that I work for is Birds and Animals Unlimited. We also provide all the animals for the Chuck Lorre sitcoms, the 4-camera shows, and the Universal theme parks, and all sorts of motion picture and television. So.
Why don't you tell us what a couple of the Chuck Lorre shows are? I'm sure they've heard of them.
Yes, we did Mom. We did Mom. We do Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon occasionally. We started with Chuck on 2.5 Men. So he's a long-standing client.
All right. Hey, guys. I am a casting director. Our job is we're the combination of creative and business side. So yes, we get to do the fun stuff of auditioning. That's my favorite part of the job. Love auditioning people and working with actors. We get to direct the actors in the room. But we also have to deal with the agents and the managers. And I say that lovingly. Lots of friends there. But so people come to us for our relationships because it's an easy back and forth with all the agents and managers that we already know. So we talk to the producers and the director, and we find out what they want, and then we have to relay that to all the agents and managers in town and find what we're looking for, and kind of balance between the director, what his vision is, and the producer in the studio and all of that to get the right vision out. So yeah, that's what I do. I work mostly in film, but also in TV.
I work as a production coordinator primarily. That can mean a lot of different things based on how small or how large your crew and your set are. My day-to-day during production, after pre-production takes place, is a lot of making sure everyone else is doing their job is my job. It feels like babysitting sometimes, but in a really fun kind of way. And the pre-production process can look pretty different based on if it's a live show or if it's, television, film, commercial, that kind of stuff. I know that's very vague, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of the crewing and casting process and making sure that everything is seen through from the very, very beginning to the very, very end.
I run the day-to-day sales and operations of Lighting and Grip over at Paramount Pictures. And for any production company that comes onto our lot, for example, like This Is Us, they have to rent our equipment that goes on the stages, and we also supply equipment around Los Angeles as well. So my role is just leading the team in the day-to-day that happens on the lot, anything and everything that has to do with grip and lighting.
Great,
Thank you. We understand everybody has to either know somebody or have a special talent to get their first job. What do you think set yourself apart to get your first job? Celia?
I'm going to talk about how I got my first job in lifestyle programming, which was I went to interview with a production company that was looking for a producer for a History Channel show. And so I went in. And first of all, this is way, way, way back in the day when cable was first starting, and I was trying to get out of Nickelodeon before I got fired. And one of my friends who was in lifestyle programming and, all the cable shows. And I said, well, she said, well, you should come, interview. And I said, well, why would they hire me? I make cartoons. And she said, you're smart and you'll work cheap. They'll hire you. That doesn't happen anymore, but it worked in my favor. But anyway, I went in and I didn't get the History Channel gig, but the guy who was interviewing me said, you wouldn't know how to sew, would you? And of course, if you don't know this, know it now. Always say yes. Always say you can do whatever they want. And I said, I can sew. And I said, and I know you don't believe me because I know you think I'm just lying to you to get this job, but I actually not only can sew, I'm really good. Without being asked, and this is a true story, without being asked, I recovered all the conference room chairs at Nickelodeon because they were black and I thought they should be orange. Yeah, so I had to leave. But so that's how I got my first job, because what they decided was it would be easier to teach somebody who knew how to sew how to produce rather than try and teach a producer how to sew. So I'm not sure that's true, but it worked in my favor. So that's how I got my first job. Simply Quilts.
Weller Grossman, right?
Yeah.
First job, that's what you wanted to know?
Yeah, I want to know, like, how did you get your first job? Did they see something special in you?
Well, it depends on how far you go back, because while I was in high school, I was doing student films and audio productions with a guy named Tom Davis, another Moorpark graduate. You can look him up. He's on networks credits all the time for the big specials like Hairspray, all the big live NBC productions they do out of New York. He owns a studio in Nashville. But he and I were doing productions like that in high school, and then when I got to Moorpark College, I needed money. And there was an outfit called Moorpark College Community Services. I don't know if they exist anymore.
I haven't heard of it.
But they needed somebody to do lighting and sound for concerts out of the biggest facility on the campus, which was the Forum Theater. And that was really my first job. And also, I saw it posting when I walked into the cafeteria the first time for a job at KVEN and KHAY. It was a duopoly back then. And I just did volunteer associate producing, and in exchange, instead of pay, I helped myself to all their production facilities on the weekend and learned by making mistakes.
That's great.
And then doing that through college, I can't emphasize enough doing as much of that as you can in college, so that when you send that resume out for your first job outside of college, which I got in San Francisco doing a documentary series on criminal justice, you've already got a resume. Otherwise, you walk out of here and you've got your degree, and it doesn't really mean all that much when you're competing with a lot of people.
Good advice. Thank you.
My first job was a result of a couple internships, and I can't stress to everybody enough how important internships are. I mean, granted, it's good to have the degree, but if you don't know people, it takes you a long way. So what happened in my situation was I had an internship at CBS in Detroit, and then immediately after that, on my junior year, and my senior year, I had an internship at ABC, at the ABC owned and operated station in Detroit. And there were only 5 at that time owned and operated stations. So there was, yeah, WXYZ, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I was fortunate enough to be trained by Bob and Ann Shanks, who developed Good Morning America. We developed a show in Detroit called Good Afternoon Detroit. And very fortunate to grow with that show. And then I got hired in at ABC, stayed at ABC for 20 years, and then after that went to NBC. After that resulted from producing Roseanne to Lisa, and I can't, again, stress enough, it wasn't for the internships. It helped me out tremendously. So that's, if anything, going away with anything tonight, just remember that internships are so important, in my opinion.
Thank you.
The first job I had in editing was actually working for free because, like you said, you need to build up a resume before you can go and get a job. And unfortunately, when somebody's trying to hire somebody, they want to see that you already done what they want you to do. So it's really hard to be really green. So at the time, right after film school, I was working doing DVD quality control at Universal, which was basically watching movies over and over again, looking for defects in the DVD. And then at night I got I was working for free for a BBC documentary. They had run out of money and they couldn't afford an assistant editor. So I would go there after my day job and log tapes or do whatever they wanted, so I could put that on my resume. And based on that, I was able to get my first job as an assistant editor. I think for those of you who are interested in editing, it's also important to know that the setups, if you want to go on a route that is more, I don't know, television or movies, the duties of an assistant editor, which is the way that most people come into editing, are completely different from actually editing, being able to cut together a movie or an episode of television. And since it's a different skill set, you either have to get somebody to give you an apprenticeship that you'd be learning the procedures of how an editing room runs, or I know there are also classes that you can take that are specific for assistant editing skills, because I know that early on when you're being hired, they don't really care if you know how to edit, but you need to know how a cutting room runs and how things are organized and how you're logging tapes or how the procedures are and how the projects are set in order, and all of that is really important. So, but yeah, but sometimes you just have to work for free, and that's what I did.
I'm going to agree with that. It's a big thing to not nickel and dime everybody. You're not going to get paid for everything. And I'm going to answer the question two ways, because not only did I have a hard time in the business starting, but I was also ended up involved in hiring. And so in hiring, at least in our industry, and I think in the entire motion entertainment industry, the three things that are most important to me were attitude, a desire, and a willingness to sacrifice. Talent's not in there. It's how hard you're the guy that shows up every day. And I started off working for $50 a day, cleaning the show at Universal. But I never said no to anything. And I did a lot of free stuff. I did a lot of student films because I wanted the experience. And I would volunteer with other trainers just to be around it. And I know you're all film people, so I know you all got it. Like, you're all hungry. You can't leave it alone, because I don't care how rich you get in the industry, how much money you make in the industry, you're never going to be properly compensated for your time. Yeah, so you don't even get that in the start. So you just got to be willing to not leave it alone and have a good attitude and always be that guy, because after a while, you put in your time, and then people will start putting time into you, and they're going to start showing you things and start saying, oh, I want that guy, because that guy doesn't take a day off. That guy's always around. I can always count on that guy. And the talent and the skill can come later if you don't have it already. But the desire, if you don't have the desire, you can't learn that.
I hear that so often. People just need to show up, and if you're a few minutes early, you're on time, right? If you're on time, you're late, kind of thing.
Well, you're in the right place at the right time if you're always in the place. if you're not there, if you don't show up, then you can't be the right guy at the right time.
Yep. Well said.
Okay, so I got my start in a way I think a lot of people have in my industry, which is you got to know somebody. I just got lucky because my brother had worked for a big agent at the time, and I knew I wanted to be a casting director, which is kind of a interesting thing for a college student to want to do, because most people don't know what that is. And so I just was like, give me a list of all the casting directors, and I tried to reach out to everyone I could and see if who would let me intern for them. And luckily, so one of the people on the list let me intern for her, and she's now my business partner. So I had to intern right out of college. I interned, and it was at least a half a year, and just showing up whenever I could, doing whatever I could for them. We don't really we don't deal with too many headshots anymore, physical copies, but I would file that. I would go get coffee, lunch, whatever I needed to do just to soak up anything, because in my business, my side of the business, you don't train to be a casting director in the way of, there are no classes, specific classes, like this is a casting director class in college, that they don't have that. So you just kind of have to, you know, have on-the-job experience and want it and want to learn, and never think you know anything. You just have to soak it all up. So that is what I did, and luckily I got a chance when somebody left to say, hey, I was always here, and they hired me. So I just kind of stuck around and waited until there was a job while I was trying to look for another job. So that is my story.
Persistence.
Yes.
So my very last day at Moore Park was on a Tuesday, and the very next day, a Wednesday, was my first ever PA gig, which I think is how a lot of us got our very first job, was, you know, production assistant work, that kind of stuff. And what I did differently was I woke up early every day, checked, you know, every job board that's available to me, and when I, you know, would get the phone call to, you know, see if I was a good fit or not for the job, I knew how to sell myself, and I made the most of my time at Moore Park, and, you know, built up my skills, built up my resume without actually going to work in the film industry. I did everything from, like, play a dead body in a student film to hosting the talent show, and I really, like, soaked up everything that I could while I was a student, because that is, like, the safest time to try everything.
That's awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
My first job when I was young was a production assistant as well. I had a good friend of mine who had a sister who was producing commercials, and I took that job. And if you had asked me back then that production assistant job would, over a course of time and grit, that I would become an executive at Paramount Pictures, I would have said you're crazy. But it happened. So my point is don't ever turn down a job because it's not the one you want, because you never know where it's going to lead you over time and grit. So.
Great, thank you. A theme over everybody seems to be trying hard, working hard, showing up, not giving up, knowing what you want and going after it, being dependable, being on time, right? All that. Do you think an associate's degree is enough to have a successful career in entertainment? And if not, do you recommend any particular university programs?
Sure. Well, if you asked me this question back in 2007, 2008, before the financial crisis, I would have said no, because most of the jobs in our industry are trades business, union jobs. You need to know that trade, but then getting into that is difficult as well. You have to go through a series of permitting, and you do have to know people. But in this day and age, you need a degree. You know, associate's degree isn't enough. Go get your education, get a degree, because believe it or not, the studios and things like that, if you don't have a degree, you won't even get the interview, right? So I feel very strongly, don't take my path. My path was the most resistance, you know, that I took to get to where I'm at 50. And, you know, I'm proud of that. You know, I got a great job, but I took a beating. So, and you'll take a beating getting your degree, but go get your degree. Definitely get your degree. Don't drop out. Don't do what I did. I dropped out after 2.5 years of college. And I don't recommend that at all.
And never take no for an answer. I mean, I can't tell you how, if you get a no, just go on to the next one. Just be persistent, find your passion, and just go with it. Don't give up. A lot of people just give up. I mean, look at some of the, celebrities that oh my gosh. Name some celebrities who have made it later in life. Steve Carell, 40 years old. I mean, he had his first break at 40 years old. There's many out there that have made it later in life, but don't give up. Don't let no stop you from anything.
Don't get caught in the negativity. I know it happens here at school too, but people get caught up in the rumor mill and the gossip and this is the way it is and you'll never be. No, if it, like, the way you should look at it, the way I always tell students to look at it is if there's something that you want to do, I mean, nobody here wants to go to Mars, right? So if there's something that you want to do, odds are somebody else has already done it. So you have to think, why not you? And what did they do? And what is it within myself that is keeping me from achieving what I want? And you have to look at yourself very realistically. You know, am I hard to get along with? Do I not work hard enough? Do I need to make more of a commitment? So whatever it is that's honest and true, and when you're looking in the mirror, then just work on that. And if you do not, at the stage that you guys are in, like, you think a lot of things, like you have a lot of thoughts, and you have a lot of strong opinions. So it's incumbent on you to run all those things down and find out, because that's how you avoid being a regretful older person, right? Like, you need to run all of your dreams down, and the people that are negative, you got to look at them and say, well, why do you think that is? Is it because they don't have the fortitude to go through it? Because who knows? Who knows you? You know, all the people around you are the same age as you. So who really knows more about life than you do about your own life?
Can I jump in here?
Of course.
I should have said this when I last had the mic, but I definitely want everyone here to know that the only interns on my side of production, with agents, managers, production offices, casting, we will only take interns that are in college. For legal reasons, there was an issue in our industry, and we want interns. So we are always, there's so many people that are always looking for interns in college to come in and learn during the summer or whatever. Run the camera for a casting office. There's usually that job. So that's my advice for you on that. I also am in a career, like I just said, where, I mean, you don't train exactly for what I do, like in terms of having a trade, electrical or whatever. That's not what we do. But if I would say definitely important that I went to community college, and then I transferred and I went to San Francisco State. I know you did as well. And going to a film school to learn as much as I could, because if I'm going to be in the film business and I'm going to talk to directors and producers, I want to know the history of film. I wanted to know as much as I could about everything, because when you come into in our circles and you have not educated yourself, it's easy to spot. And the people that continually educate themselves are the ones that go further, in my view, in my side of business.
Mind if I butt in here?
Please.
It's not just the education that you get at the school, it's the extracurricular activities that are part of the curriculum that you don't have to be in, but you must be in. When I did remote production here at Moorpark, we didn't have a remote van. We would literally tear down the studio, which was very primitive by what you've got today, and put it up in a van borrowed from the library, and we would set up everything in the field, and we would do basketball, we would do football, we would do baseball. And
We still have that internship program here.
exactly. And on the resume, I had the college degree, I had the FCC license, which I still recommend you get, but it's nothing like it used to be because the NAB deregulated to make it cheaper to hire less experienced people. But the first thing on your resume before you get that first job outside of school is I directed TVC News at San Francisco State every week. I did baseball, football, basketball. You don't necessarily have to emphasize that it was non-paid and it was part of a remote class at Moorpark, but you put that credit on your resume, and that's what gets you hired. And that 2 years you have in the second half of your 4-year education, if you can fit it into 4 years, like I did, it gives you the opportunity to grab internships. One of my clients was Pac-12 Sports, and most of the 800 games we do a year, and that's a lot of games, we would have what's called MEO technology. You'll have to look it up. But we'll have 5 cameras out there. One of those 5 cameras is a student intern at every Pac-12 school. Those kinds of internships exist now in the Directors Guild, in Disney, in all the major studios. Fox, of course, is getting folded into Disney at the end of this month, so there's fewer studios out there, but they all have internships and they all cater to students. AFI, they have programs for students. It gives you an edge getting that degree. And the nice thing about Moorpark is every time I go up there to San Francisco State and say, oh, I need to waive this class, and they'd say, no, no, no. I said, I went to Moorpark. They'd say, take the final. It's a great school here.
I have the opposite reaction of everybody else at this table. I went to Pierce Community College. I then transferred to Cal State Northridge. All the valuable information that I needed to work and to get a job, I learned at Pierce because I did a concentrated associate's degree where most of the people at the four-year college, if they were coming up through the four-year college, weren't doing a constant. They were, just taking their time going up. It is true that internships are very important, and legally, you almost always have to be in college. But you don't have to be at a four-year college. And I think now, Carl, when you were saying like at the studio, they won't even talk to you unless you have a four-year degree, that's probably true for a lot of the jobs that you're interested in. But it's not all of them. I have never once, no one has asked me once where I went to school, what I got my degree in, and I've had a lot of luck. I have, wiggled into jobs, but considering how expensive those four-year schools are, the advice I give everybody is get a 2-year degree, learn everything that a concentrated program will teach you, learn how to edit, because that's the wave of the future. You're gonna have to know editing no matter what you do. As far as, if you're directing, you have to know editing. Obviously, if you're gonna work as a producer, you have to know how these things are gonna go together. If you're doing, the budget, you have to know how to edit, because edit is going to make you or break you. So if you can get your technical skills, I'm all for it, because the other thing that's going to go for you here is you get out. Youth is very important. Everybody in the entertainment industry wants to hire somebody young. So, because you know all the latest stuff.
And they're
and
cheap.
you work cheap. Yes.
Cheap.
So I would definitely, most people's parents don't want me to say this to their kids, but I would seriously consider that you're getting your education here. You really are.
And just an aside, you can, even if you're at Cal State Northridge or another school, you can sign up for an internship through Moorpark College. Isn't that right, Michael? For forever, right? You can, even if you want an internship and they were saying you have to enroll in college, come back here and enroll in our internship class. That's all you need to do. And what that does is it provides workers' comp insurance to the employer. So if you get hurt, Moorpark is responsible, not the employer. So they like that. They like that. So yeah, just remember for your whole life, you can come back and do an internship here through us.
That's fantastic.
Yes, anytime.
I wanted
Yes,
to
Miriam.
add something on to what Celia said. I do feel that a four-year degree, it is kind of essential in editing, at least from what I've seen. That there are older editors who have gone through the apprenticeship route. I've met people who, straight out of high school, have gone into editing, but they tend to be a lot older than you guys, so I think the landscape has shifted. But from someone who had a very expensive education and still wears the burden of it, I would really think that you guys should think very seriously about the cost of the education incur if you're going to be taking student loans, because the ability to be able to work for very little money or for free, it's really important when you're starting out, and you have to be nimble. And if you're carrying huge student debt, that really impedes on that ability. So it's a thin balance, because I do think it is important to have the 4-year degree if you can, but at the same time be very aware of how much you're taking on.
Can I ask you an additional question? I know you have an MFA from USC as well.
Right.
So you went on after your bachelor's degree and also
That's
got a
right.
master's degree.
Uh-huh.
And how did that help in any way?
Well,
For me, it helped me because I can now teach at Moore Park.
right. For me,
But
everybody
other
says
than
that it's about connections. It didn't pay off in the ways that I expected it to pay off. I think that in terms of my life trajectory, from my own personal growth, it was essential. But in terms of career-wise, I don't know if it would have made sense, you know. But the debt that I incurred at USC was debilitating. It's a very expensive school, and even though I was a TA, a teacher's assistant, and I had to pay a fraction of people who paid full tuition paid, it's still a burden, you know, and that makes it much more difficult for you to make decisions and feel free that you're like, oh, the world is my oyster and I'll be able to tackle whatever I wish. It doesn't work like that if you have that much debt.
You don't have the option to work for free.
Which I did briefly, but for instance, if you have this idea that you're gonna go out there and make a documentary or try to make an independent film, it's just very hard. There were people that I knew going to SC that they really did believe they were going to be the next Spielberg and put $500,000 on credit cards, you know. And then I know a couple of people who declared bankruptcy as they were graduating. Because they just thought it like they just was this wishful thinking that I'm gonna be the exception and I'm gonna make it, and it doesn't quite pan out that way, you know. So
That's too bad.
They
Can I
just
just
needed a
really-
good producer, that's all.
Just to chime in on it is a humongous burden, educational debt. And so to tie into other things, if I may get on my soapbox real quick, is that it shouldn't be like that. And you guys are the future, so you guys need to vote and realign the legislation.
Free junior college. It was free. Moore Park was free when I went here. I don't know what it costs now.
It was $15 a unit.
Yeah, that
one
was.
year.
Oh my God! It
My
wasn't even that
first-
for me. It was free for me.
It was a lot more than
Yeah.
15.
When I was here, it was free. There was no cost per unit. I think there was a student activity fee of $20 a semester. That
My
was it.
first semester at the University of California at Berkeley, and at the semester, the time that I applied, there were 9 Nobel laureates that were teaching on the campus. 9. And my first semester tuition was $782. I paid for it with my summer job. It's
I
not
went
like
to
that
UC
now. It shouldn't be like that now.
I went to UCSD and it was about $15,000 a year at the UCs, and that was cheap, 15.
It was
My-
a lot more when I was here, obviously, than like $15. But that said, I'm, definitely on like the split camp of I don't think a college education is necessarily like quintessential to your career. Will it make things easier? Yes. If you have access to it, should you take advantage of it? Absolutely. However, that is a huge privilege that a lot of people in this country right now don't have. Is it impossible to do all of the things that we're all sitting here doing without a degree? Yeah, it's absolutely possible. You're up against a lot more than you would be with a degree. You're probably going to get a lot of hard no's, just again, because they don't want to hire interns who aren't getting college credit, because that really is working for nothing and frowned upon right now. And that is
Sign up at Moore
tough.
Park.
Exactly. And while that's like really tough to swallow, it's not impossible to give yourself the skills and the qualifications that make you super hireable without a degree. I took one film class at Moore Park. That's it. Just one. And I'm definitely up against a lot of things. I taught myself a lot of skills on my own time. I jumped into everything I could. Again, I made the absolute most of my time at Moore Park, even before I was, studying film. So it's not impossible, but you're definitely up against a lot more, and you kind of have to weigh that against, like, can I afford this in the long term? Because college is only getting more and more expensive right now.
Let me add something that's really important that I think we're not talking about here, and that's that, remember, a lot of the jobs here in Southern California are tied into the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or better known as IATSE. Those are union jobs, and there's thousands of employees that are part of that. So you do not have to have a college education for that, but you have to, it's a catch-22. You have to be able to get into that trade, right? And that's set lighting and grip, that's, you know, wardrobe, you have Teamsters, you have drivers. That's a whole nother world. That's an amazing career, but you have to be able to get into that union, and it's very difficult. You have to know people, and you have to permit, and you have to, you know, be on a show as a PA that gets turned into a union show. So that's something you also, you know, we need to talk about that too, is to understand all the different trades that are out there. It's not just a business of actors, directors, and writers and producers. There's a whole world below the line, and you have to be tied into that and understand that. I think, you know, you guys learn that through stagecraft and things like that, but it's a union world out there. So I'm not about, I don't support the whole work for free thing.
We're Teamsters.
You know?
Let me butt in there.
You know, it's work union, live better. You know, and I came from that, and then I went into management. But anyway.
I would agree on the union job being the best pay. I didn't make any good money until I was working in a union job. But you don't want to get into the union too early, because once you're in the Directors Guild, you're penalized for directing anything that is not covered under the Directors Guild. You want to get all kinds of experience which you can put towards your QL, your qualifications list in IATSE and Directors Guild. It's part of that chain of having to work for free or nearly free, often under the table, just to get the credits. Then you get the union job once you've got enough experience that you can carry yourself from one union job to the next.
There's also reality TV that's all non-union.
So I am
Doesn't pay as well. You don't get benefits.
Yeah.
But then nobody's stabbing you in the back for your job.
So I'm also part of a union, but for editing, so that people know it works a little differently. You can be part of the Editors Guild and then still work in non-union jobs and not be penalized for it.
That is good. That's very good.
And I want to say that every job in our industry is so different that even though we're Teamsters and luckily they took the casting directors on, like literally 2 years into when I started, I got so lucky. It's different with us because we're allowed, we're all allowed, as long as you work on a union project, they have to pay in, and you don't have to be union to get a union job with us, but definitely not allowed to work on anything non-union nor would you for us, because that they pay for your health and your pension. So they all, I just wanted to reiterate, all of these different jobs, they all work so differently with the unions or what kind of skills you need and all that.
I think that lends well to our next question, which is, what is it like to work as a freelancer? Or maybe you're not a freelancer. Carl's not, right?
No,
it's
I'm not.
hard. It's hard to get those long-term gigs. Who wants to talk about that first?
I can, because I'm the animal trainer, so.
You know what? Maybe I should explain what a freelancer is.
Yes.
So a freelancer is when you work on one show, and then once the show's complete, then you're looking for your next job. So it's part of like that new, you've heard the term gig economy, where you're going from job to job, and in between you might have to file unemployment.
Permatemp. They're called permatemps now.
Yes.
Permatemps, gig economy. But a lot of people, what they do is they work on a TV series. The TV series is over. Maybe it doesn't get renewed. Then you're looking for your next job. And so you're constantly selling yourself. You're constantly networking and having to and to promote yourself and to get opportunities for your next job.
We call it day play.
Day play too.
And day play, that's most of your life as an animal trainer, because not every show needs an animal every show. So you just have to be on the ball and ready to do whatever is required. So if it's training birds for a job one day, and then the next day another show needs a dog, and I've actually done 2 shows at once, and it's feast or famine. So I was doing this movie, this Jim Carrey movie called Fun with Dick and Jane, and my only part in that show, I was assistant trainer to the lead dog, but then I trained a dog to lift his leg on a bush. and the lift his leg on a bush showed up for 3 weeks solid on the call sheet, and it kept getting pushed and kept getting pushed. And then it went away, and they said, we'll come back. We got to come back to that. So then I was on another movie called Hotel for Dogs. And so I'm working on Hotel for Dogs, and then Dick and Jane came back. And so I was on, my call time for Hotel for Dogs was at 7 a.m. And my boss let me go at 7 p.m. to go to Dick and Jane. So I got to Dick and Jane at about 9 o'clock, and then that was a night shoot. So I was released at 7 a.m. the next day. So that's but you can't, I was eating their money. I was on their call sheet. I showed up every day for 3 weeks. They didn't shoot it. So when they finally decided to shoot it, was the last pickup day. So this was definitely going to happen. And since I'm the one that's been eating their money, then I'm the one that has to show up when it actually shoots. So it's a lot of personal integrity, and it's a lot of commitment to what you say you're going to do, and you just have to juggle and make it work. And then you'll go for months. Like some months I'll go, I'll work 10 days in a month if I'm day playing. So yeah, it's feast or famine.
And you have to save your money and not spend it all at
Yes.
once, because
Right.
there's going to be those days when you're not working.
Welcome to financial instability.
Yes.
So, yes, I'm an independent contractor, and for casting directors, it's definitely a tough business where you're especially in film. TV, you're like, this is the life, but you're like insane most of the year. Film is like a little bit smoother, but more unstable, and you want to have as many films kind of in different stages of development, because you never know. Even if a producer's like, yeah, so we're going in May, and you're like, great. You can never depend on anyone telling you when anything is going to start shooting. So you just have to have a lot of things kind of in the works, and hopefully, down the line, you end up having these relationships, because you just kind of, as we talked about, work on things that aren't going to make as much money, but you end up having these relationships for us with these directors who down the line we're making these studio movies with them, so you can count on 1 to 2 studio movies hopefully a year, or projects. But yeah, you have to constantly hustle, and luckily I'm in a different place in my career, but for many years, especially during the financial crisis, that was really tough, where you go and meet with anyone, any assistant, any person, because connections on my side, that's what it's all about. Know everybody. Never talk down to anyone, because you never know what that assistant, that agent I'm talking to, that assistant, you never know if they're going to be a big agent. You never know. You should be nice to everybody in our business.
Yeah, I will piggyback off that for sure. Like, networking is really, really important, but almost more important than that is to maintain the relationships you make. When I was working in a role that did a lot of hiring, I hired the people who hit me up often and most recently. If I'm trying to scramble and find a camera operator, I really am going to just go through and see who's emailed me or texted me or called me recently. It really comes down to who's trying to maintain this relationship with me, not who did I meet a year ago and they handed me a resume or a business card. So as a freelancer, get out there and stay out there. And it is you have to hustle and you have to manage yourself and your time well. You know what I'm doing for St. Patrick's Day? I'm working from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. and then I'm turning around and going to another shoot at 7:30 a.m. That's my day.
And do that when you're young.
The saying "out of sight, out of mind" is real in this industry.
It really
They
is,
will
and it's
forget about
nothing
you.
personal. It's just that I have so much happening in that moment that you just have to be one of the last 5 people to hit me up. That's it.
I was working at 4 television stations before ABC finally gave me a permanent gig. And back then, I don't know if it's that way now, you had vacation relief periods where everybody had to get their vacation at certain times. And you can look up on the job sites. Suddenly they have all these openings in New York, in LA, in San Francisco, and Detroit, certain times of the year where all their staff guys are going to take a vacation. The freelancers get that work, and you shine, and they offer you a permanent gig. And then when you retire, if you make it to that, like I did after my grandson was born, then you can use the freelance lifestyle to pick and choose the shows you want to work on. I just picked and choose, after I retired, I just wanted to do sports and I just wanted to do the games. I didn't want to do post-production. I had done a lot of editing, but I like the adrenaline of live. And it says, ooh, I want to do that game. Oh, and the better thing is you can pick and choose when you're older and you've got experience and you're freelancing which producers or directors you want to work with, because some of them are real pricks. Pardon my French.
Oh, no. Anybody else want to chime in on what it's like working as a freelancer, or maybe how you got a staff job?
I just want to chime in on how important it is to maintain contacts, all the time. Networking is so important. Keeping in touch with the people that you've networked, I can't stress that enough. There was a certain point in my life where I was freelancing, and I was working with Fox with a show with James Von Prague, who is a celebrity psychic. And we were working on a show where the whole theme was talking to celebrity deceased relatives. So we were talking, we had Cher talking to Sonny and, that kind of thing. And so then all of a sudden 9/11 hit. And it wasn't a good time to talk to the dead, it wasn't. So that whole show, canceled. But because I maintained my contacts, I went from to another show. But again, it's just really important to maintain the contacts that you establish. Even the people next to you now, really, you never know where you're going to be a year from now. Just keep in touch with your classmates and your teachers, and that's very, very important.
You're only good as your last show. You really fuck up, it will follow you. It will
That's
follow you.
one thing that my boss always instilled is every job is an audition for the next job. And that's your entire career.
Yep.
Are we bumming you guys out?
Are they scaring you into reality?
There's a lot of pressure.
No?
It's
You're
good
still
pressure.
inspired? Raise your hand if you're inspired.
Okay,
Woo,
good.
look at all those hands.
Get used to it.
So one thing I will say, that when you're starting out, the momentum of all the interviews will fool you into thinking something is going on. So just keep in mind that all of a sudden you will just say, well, I had this interview, and 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 I'm not getting them. Don't let that depress you. I mean, you just have to keep moving forward. And all these, I got caught up in that as long as I was moving forward and having all these interviews. It was okay, something was happening. And then all of a sudden you go, wow, nothing real is happening. I'm just having a lot of lunch. So, you do want to get the freelancing. You have to do it, but you honest to God can't make a career anymore, I don't think, of freelance work. It's not. I grew up in a family that was all in the industry, and my parents made their living their whole lives as sitcom writers. That does not happen anymore, especially, and they were freelance, like they weren't on staff. So just keep going, take the freelance work, but you are going to eventually want to settle down. I mean, it got to the point where I would get these calls, and I just thinking, if you want me to wash my hair and put on a bra, you better have some work for me. So.
Well, I guess I'd have to disagree, because in my industry, that's what you are, unless you work at the studio, and it is a very different job when you are the head of casting at Warner Brothers or any of those studios. To do what I do, you're always going to be freelance. So it is not an easy, job, a career to go after, for sure. But when you love what you do and you hustle, it is possible to be freelance for your entire career in my side of the business.
I would agree. In fact, that's the norm with IATSE and DGA and everybody else.
Yeah, with editing, since I work mostly in television, most TV series, each season would last anywhere between 3 to 8 months. So I pretty much plan my life in 6-month increments, because I don't know what's going to happen next. And I got to say that I've never got a job that wasn't from somebody I haven't worked with before, or somebody who recommended me personally. I never got a job out of a website or something that didn't have a personal connection. So like somebody said, it's like your current job is auditioning for the next one. Is absolutely true. That's how you get your jobs. Yeah.
In my perspective, I've spent my entire career supporting production, right? So you either work directly or indirectly. So I've spent my career at 2 major studios every day. So and to me, there's nothing like it because I'm seeing the hustle and bustle every day, supporting it, supplying all the lighting and grip for it. I see all the productions come in. They come, they go. But when you work at a major studio, you're there every day. And it's extremely rewarding to I get to drive onto the lot every day, and it's, I like a regular paycheck. So that's the direction I went, so there's no right or wrong. They're both great. It's what your comfort zone is, and you got to time manage, and you got to financially manage in that way. But the everyday place to go is what my need was, and that's how I pursued it. It's just fun to be on a major lot.
I mean, I wake up at 11 a.m. sometimes, so that's nice. I don't have to go to an office. I mean, I do have a child, but the point is like there's a give and take of being in the office. If I wanted to be a casting director in the casting office at a studio, I'm not the kind of person who wants to dress up in the in that kind of regular business gear every day. I like to show up in this is as fancy as I get, guys. Seriously, it's a different life. But obviously for me, I mean, maybe I'm not working 9 to 5, but I'm working, all hours, anytime I can. My hours are not 9 to 5. They're just all over the place, constantly on the weekends. I get my work done. And that's the life of someone, for me, as freelance.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. In honor of Women's History Month, what advice do you give to women who want to succeed in entertainment?
I'll start.
Okay.
Why not? I have 2 daughters, so I'll tell you guys what I tell my 2 daughters. Be lions in the world and roar loudly so the world can hear you. And you female leaders out there, lead inclusively and not autocratically is something that's really important because everybody's got a lot of great ideas. And when you're out there, lead that way, inclusively. Because the old school paradigm doesn't work. And it's never been a better time to be young and be in the entertainment business than it is right now. There's more content being produced than ever before, more ways to view content than ever before, and there's a lot of accountability. So to be a woman in this industry is really empowering. I mean, my boss, the executive vice president, is a female, and there's just so many women in high-level positions that I see. And most of the people that I do business with are line producers and unit production managers, production coordinators. Most of them are female. They're great jobs. They're incredible jobs. So there's a lot out there for you. So I'll speak from my perspective, but that's what I know.
Find a mentor. If you're a woman trying to get into this business, find another woman who's a mentor. One of my former general managers, Valerie Staub, she was excellent, and I went to her to recommend one of my coworkers, Janice Reyes, for the director of engineering in San Francisco. And she was the only woman applying, and she said, "Why should I hire her over anybody else?" And I said, "Because you work with her, not for her. She's not authoritarian. She communicates. You feel like you're working with her, and that's a much better relationship."
If any time, now's the time for women to shine in our industry. We're a force to be reckoned with right now. And, we're here to shine. So as a woman, giving advice to another woman who wants to start off in this industry, be strong, go with your passion, and again, don't take no for an answer. Finding a mentor is very important, I think, as well. Again, this is our time. So we're a force to be reckoned with, and go with it.
Most animal trainers are women, so for me, it's no different. But there's that saying: if it makes money, it makes sense. And the entertainment industry is a business, and if you can prove that they can make money with you, then it doesn't matter. I haven't seen a single job on any crew that I've ever been on that a man can do better than a woman, right? Like they're all the same. The last show I worked on was produced by Margot Robbie, directed by Kathy Yan, the Birds of Prey. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience. So it's like it's not your gender, it's not your sexual. None of that has to do with anything. It has to do with your talent and what you want and your passion. Right? Like it doesn't. People make too much of gender and sexuality, and when you really think about it, and this is just my personal opinion, when you really think about it, the only people's sexuality that matter to you personally are the people that you want to have sex with and the people that want to have sex with you. Other than that, like your boss, the people you work with, your teacher, your family, like none of your business doesn't matter. So anyway, that was just throwing that in there.
Well, I will say that casting directors, I think, are more known also. It's a female-dominated career path, for sure. I won't, get into why I think that, but men can do it too, of course. But yeah, it's so different when I've seen, female agents come up. So I have a little bit more of an idea. Like I would say, if you want to be a female agent, a lot of people feel like they have to be a little tougher and, kind of be kind of mean, because the guys are a little gruff. Like so that's the best advice I can give you in terms of like you don't have to be mean in our industry. And I feel weird saying not anymore, but it's gotten so much better, thankfully. So my advice to anybody who wants to go into the management or agent side of things in our business, there are good people out there. So please, if you end up with a boss that is an a-hole, don't think that's normal. Don't try to emulate that because they were like that. Because we're trying to get rid of that in our business. We're trying to work only with people who are good people. So that's my advice.
If you get into this industry, she's very right. People, excuse my language, but people will be shitty to you. And what I always tell people when people are shitty to them is that just because someone's shitty to you, does that make you shit or does that make them shit? And that's what you have to focus on, because she's right, and we are trying to make it nicer because it doesn't have to be that way. There's so much talent and money and all this stuff flying around. It's like, what is the point of being a miserable person?
Life's too short, is what we
Right.
say. We don't want to deal with those people.
I would say to women in the industry, don't let people make you enemies. Other women are not your competition. Inherently, they're not. I think very easily, especially when I walk onto set and it's me and one other woman and maybe 75 men, it's very easy for it to look like we have to compete, and that mentality is so garbage, and I cannot wait until that goes away. And then the other thing I would say is, like, network with other women. Like, bring other women onto set if you're in a position to. I'm, like, always happy to give people my card and, like, network with them on LinkedIn and whatever.
In light of the recent scandals in Hollywood, too, I mean, that cannot be emphasized enough that you do not have to compromise yourself to get where you don't have to compromise yourself for anything. Let's put it that way.
I want to add one more
when
thing.
when they try to make you, like, they're liars. They're not going to give you what they say they're going to give you anyway. So do not compromise yourself.
No meetings in hotel rooms.
And tell somebody. Like, that's just,
You have to have a strong inner core, and just in life. This goes for females and males, period. I mean, in this industry, you're going to have a lot of disappointment, and it's not who you are when everything is going great. It's who are you when you get knocked down, when you're told you're not good enough or you're not, talented enough. So grit and a strong inner core is so important in this industry, in any industry. So if you have that, I mean, I'll paraphrase here, but the great Sir Winston Churchill said success is going from failure after failure without loss of enthusiasm. Don't lose the enthusiasm, because failure is a wonderful thing. To understand it, and then when you have some success and realize that you've gone full circle, you can appreciate the success. But that strong inner core, because you will be judged and you will get knocked down, but get up and keep fighting. You have to. You have to.
there's a popular saying right now that I don't agree with. That people keep saying the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And that, well, first of all, that's not the definition of insanity. But I grew up with a different phrase, and that phrase was, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And I believe in that one. Because there people will just knock you down and tell you you're not good enough. And just, you got, like, I see it. I'm looking around, I see these guys, and you guys all have some glimmer of that fire. Just, like, don't let it go out, and don't get discouraged. And you know you're talented. If you believe in yourself, that's a start. And then it just takes one more person to believe in you, and one more after that. You got it.
Miriam, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it is still a very male-dominated industry, at least. I mean, I know that editorial is a little better than the other post departments. I think it's about, but it's still about like 30% female to 70% male. And I think there is a greater awareness right now that that's a problem, and there is an effort and an awareness that that's not okay. But I am going to say that there are certain things that are institutional, that are, I think, become barriers for women. That is something that you're just going to have to deal with. For instance, the hours can be very long. So for both men and women who are in a family or planning to have families, that is something that anybody who goes into the film industry is going to have to deal with at some point or another. The way that it's kind of a joke, but not a joke, but I always feel that whenever I join a show, it's almost like indentured servitude. You're signing off your life, because you don't know if you're gonna have your evenings, you don't know if you're gonna have your weekends. The assumption is that once you're on a show, you're available, and if you need to work late, you work late. It's without a question, but at the same time, because I think there is a bit of awareness that life goes beyond what happens on the set or in this project, that people are catching themselves more. I find that there is a stronger support system, that people do understand that people have lives outside of work, that there are children. I have a child. And that it's something that can be worked with, but at the same time, when you're starting out, that can become a big barrier, like actually keeping a separation and creating your own boundaries into what is gonna be acceptable to you as a person, as a human being when you go to work, because it is a very all-consuming career path for most people.
I have I work with almost all men because I am the director on a field shoot. The crew is small, and I have never worked with a female DP, and I think it's just because our cameras are too heavy. I have worked with exactly 2 women audio techs. And I think one thing is, if you can sort of just get beyond, I'm a female and you're a male. I think if we can get to that point, I know that has been the success of people who do what I do, is you just can't, you're going to have a disaster if you get into that, well, you're a woman and I'm a man, or vice versa, and this is your role and this is my role. So what I'm hoping is that we get to the point where we're not even thinking about this, because on my sets, we're there. And I think probably one of the reasons it has always been seamless for me is I grew up with 3 brothers. So, I just know how to do this from just growing up that way. But I think that's where we need to get. We just need to get to the point where we're not thinking about what sex anybody is and just get on with our work.
Thank you. We're going to have one more question for the panel, and then we're going to open it up to the students to ask questions with our microphone. So our last question is, what advice would you go back and tell yourself when you entered the industry? You guys want, Celia?
You're never going to lose that 20 pounds.
Damn it.
Cherish the time that you have with your family, because you're never going to get that time back.
I would say enjoy the journey, because I think everyone on this panel will say, I love my career. I love what I do. However, in the very beginning, I got caught up in the trap where, I would, just the fight to get ahead was very hard, especially back in the day as a woman. It was very hard. I mean, I have 3 boys, and I would never tell anyone that I had children. You just didn't talk about that. Now it's completely different. But if I were to give advice now, I would say enjoy the journey, enjoy the people that you meet along the way, and live in the moment.
Don't compare yourself to others, because everybody has such a different path and such a different journey. Some people will achieve success very early on, and you'll be like, why not me? And it's very easy to get caught up in comparing yourself and keeping score. It's self-defeating, because things will happen. If you just keep going, things will just go. At some point, things will gel for you. And there is no set path. So it's not like you want to be a doctor and you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then it's going to happen. It doesn't happen that way. So just be confident and I always feel like it's good to have enthusiasm, but don't be so eager that you run out of all your enthusiasm at some point and you say, it's never going to happen, because you will if you stick around. But I would just tell myself, don't compare yourself to others.
I agree completely with the last 2. It's appreciate the process, even though you're filled with 2 things right now. It's enthusiasm and anxiety, and it's the anxiety that's gonna eat you.
But does the anxiety ever go away?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could say that, but it does. No, that's part of the drive, is the anxiety. I wish it wasn't, and that's it. Just be realistic, but no, don't be. Forget I just said that. Don't be realistic. Dream the dream. You're already here. There's so many jobs in LA. That's it. You're going. I've never known anyone to not fully believe that they really want to do it. You're going to get your shot. If you don't get your shot, then you're not. Then you really didn't want it. Everyone who's ever really wanted to do something, and I'll give a perfect example. Actually, a very good friend of mine. She's on that show, Fresh Off the Boat, Chelsea Crisp. And we started at Universal Studios, and she was an entertainer, and I was an animal trainer. I'm much older than she is, so she started much longer after I started. But we opened a show together. We opened a Fear Factor live show, and we did animals there. And she was waitressing, and she was trying to get gigs, and she was having trouble, and so she went to Universal Singapore, and I was at Universal Japan, and so we would Facebook each other because we're the only ones that we knew that were up. And then she came back and kept going to auditions, and she never compromised herself, because she was offered a lot of roles multiple times on Entourage, but they told her she had to take her top off, and she said no. And now she's a regular cast member on Fresh Off the Boat. And ironically, I like to tell this story because I like to say, I know somebody on Fresh Off the Boat, and they always go, oh, do you know Randall, or do you know Constance? And I'm like, no, I know the one white person that's a regular on Fresh Off the Boat. But yeah, don't compromise yourself, and just believe it can happen, and then work towards making it happen. Easy, right?
I would say for me, I would tell myself, everyone is human, because when I started, I was in awe of so many people that came through the office, and my partner now, she had an amazing career before I started working with her, and it's just, it made me have so much anxiety about whether I was good enough. Did I choose the right career? As I still loved what I did, and it wasn't until she, because I had somebody like her who believed in me and just threw me to the fire, I had to have enough confidence to be able to give, direction in the room to people who were in their 50s looking at me like, seriously, this 20-something-year-old is going to tell me how to act? And I had to have the confidence to just go with my instincts and know I was here for a reason, and then it, so realizing that all these other casting directors, they're not gods. Like, you know, just because they've done these amazing things that I've loved growing up and all that, doesn't mean, you know, that you can't do it too if you have the confidence. You just have to, it's sappy, but believe in yourself.
I would say know your strengths, sell them well, know your weaknesses, and sell them even harder. My anxiety, like you were saying, makes me a really good fixer because I've seen the problem 10 times in my brain before it happens, and I've got about 1,000 ways to fix it before it even has begun to happen.
There are so many. Listen more, talk less. There's a reason why we were given 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. So, you know, listen carefully and pay attention and watch closely and then speak only enough to be understood. You know, I think I'm still trying to learn how to do that, but be a better active listener.
Such good advice. You know, I've lied. I have one more question. A lot of students, I'm noticing, I don't know how to say this. Tell me where most of your jobs are is my question. Are there any jobs here in Moore Park, or do you guys have to go to Hollywood to work?
I work in the valley.
You work everywhere.
Hollywood.
You work in the valley mainly, but
Well, I've been on House Hunters for 7 years. It's the longest freelance job in the world. As a matter of fact, it's not even considered freelance anymore. Any other production company who does my work, you are a freelancer, but I'm actually an employee of Pie Town, the production company. I've got benefits, which other companies don't do either. So, but I live in Santa Monica, so I'm against traffic all the time. But I have worked everywhere. I've worked in Burbank. When I was in animation, I worked in North Hollywood and Burbank, and I've had to, you know, ABC, which is in the middle of nowhere, over past Las Feliz. So I've been around.
There's about 250 plus television markets. That's a lot of places to get experience. Now the big money is in the first 5 or 10 markets. But after I left San Francisco and some work there, I went to Corpus Christi, Texas, 129th market. I threw everything in the back of my car. I drove out there. A month later, they fired the guy I was replacing. I had no idea. And I had the keys to the station, and I was directing the news for $3 an hour and making less than the 7-Eleven bag boy next door where I got my lunch. But it was a great place to get experience. I recommend you, when you're young, before you have a family, don't be afraid to move to the other side of the country for that first small market job where you can make every mistake, not too many, of course. I went from the 129th market in Corpus Christi to the 29th market in Buffalo to the 14th market in Baltimore to San Francisco, which back then was a 5 market. There's lots of places besides Hollywood to learn television production. And I think in many ways it's easier because you can make your mistakes where nobody sees them.
Yeah, again, I started off at ABC TV in Detroit, but I do feel, of course, you know, the bigger cities is where you're going to get the opportunities. As far as the Valley is concerned, I mean, you'll find certain companies that'll shoot here, but as far as production companies itself, they're rare. And I would agree with you. If you're young and have the opportunity to go cross country and get a job in a different, you know, Detroit, Chicago, you know, there's jobs out there. I would do that if I were young again.
I believe that most cutting rooms for television scripted, they're in LA. I've been working at Sony, out of Sony in Culver City, but I've worked in cutting rooms that were either in Hollywood or Burbank, and I think some of them are in New York, but mostly in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I've worked in every studio in town, and then also in Vancouver and Calgary, Orlando, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Wilmington, Japan, Osaka, Japan, and London, England. So, but Atlanta's booming. So, I mean, if I were you and you want to get into production, I was consider if you can't find anything around here, I would consider relocating to Atlanta right now.
And then it'll change. No.
And then it'll change. Yeah. But Atlanta right now, right?
It's the place to be. For me, if you pretty much in casting, if you want to be, I don't know if you want to call it like the main casting director versus the local casting director, it's mostly LA, and then there's some in New York. But there are local casting, we need local casting directors, and there's, I mean, Atlanta and a few other places. So that's just a different career path, casting the local roles versus the main. But so if you want to do main, it's pretty much LA or New York, maybe Toronto.
About like 95% of the work I've done has been within the 30-mile zone, which is pretty typical for stuff out here. I would advise people to sell themselves as locals to Orange County as well as Los Angeles. There's less work, but it might be a little easier to get. I do advise traveling and, you know, possibly relocating if that's something that's interesting to you, and keeping an eye on where the tax incentives are currently. Like right now it is Atlanta. That will change.
The whole world is your backlot. So, you know, I'm in a lot of physical production meetings, and based on the tax incentives, that's where production goes. You know, California is a TV town, Hollywood. I commute to Hollywood back. It's a 90-mile round trip every day for me. But physical production is everywhere. So while you're young, I strongly encourage you to take those gigs outside of LA and travel, you know, especially if you're on physical production and it's, you know, you have a gig that's shooting in Iceland. It's pretty cool, you know, and do that while you can. New York's a big tax incentive state, so is Atlanta. New Orleans is coming around again. You have Chicago, you have Vancouver, and then Europe. So yeah, take that opportunity to do it while you're young, and you know, don't just define yourself here.
If you just want to work in production, an American degree in film means a lot in Asia right now. When I went to film school, too, one of my classmates was Korean from South Korea, and he said he was working on his master's degree, and he said he could get a job directing TV as soon as he graduated, and he did. And he's directing Korean soaps to this day. And I have a friend who's working in China right now on a Chinese feature for 10 weeks. So if you're into that, look into it.
Great, awesome. So now I'm going to open it up to questions from you all. If you have a question, just go ahead and line up down there on the stairs and ask the question straight into the microphone so we can record you. Go for it.
Alrighty. Hi guys, my name's Chris. Are there any programs or events that you have discovered throughout your career that may help us network or know more information about the industry that like you've learned along the way? I don't know.
Get on Facebook groups. Surprisingly, super, super helpful. I've hired people from them. I've been hired from them in my like PA days. There's a ton of them. I'm happy to post links to them in our FTVM group too. After this, if someone will remind me.
Like, I need an editor, I need a PA.
All
Those
of
are
them.
the names
I
of the
think
groups.
I am probably in about 50 of them, honestly. Entertainmentcareers.net, that kind of stuff has been really helpful. A lot of times there will be networking events posted in them. Again, network, sell yourself well, and also maintain that relationship. No one's ever really bothered by being hit up repeatedly when it's done tactfully.
That's the hip way to get a job. She knows, you know, the Facebook way, but the old-fashioned way for casting is you can still go to CSA.com and you know, if you're looking to be an intern, you just sign up. But definitely also, I mean, the hard part is it's like maybe knowing anyone in the industry who can be on an assistance Facebook group, and they're talking, and then, oh, I heard about an internship, and then that's how, yeah.
Development leads. That's, if you're going to learn anything today, go to development leads and subscribe to it, because that tells you everything of all physical production that's happening, you know, around the country. and you get good insight. It tells you the producer, everybody that's on it. You can call that number, and then you can reach out and say, hey, I'm a young person, I'm looking for a job, but development leads, very important.
Also, read the trades. Read all our trades out. You'll learn about different things that are coming up. Also, get on the Director Guild site, Producers Guild site, and learn about everything that's coming up that way.
The trades are Hollywood Reporter,
Yes.
Daily Variety. Anything else?
If you want to do the television station route, Broadcasting Yearbook is a big reference book. You can get it in the library. You can buy your own if you want to spend $100+. It lists every major department head at every television station in every market in the United States and Canada.
Yeah, and then I also had one more is like in a time that's heavily dominated by technology, are there any applications or tools that you can recommend that help you like complete your job and tasks today?
I definitely want to chime in on that one. There's, depending on the craft, that you have that, like, she's deals with Avid, right? That's an editing tool, and there's different lighting that you need to learn. But if there's one thing you should all learn, and that's Excel, right? Because you never know where this job is going to take you. And our whole business world works off of Excel. If you're managing physical production, you need to know your hot costs. On my end as an executive, I have to manage a P&L. I have to speak to finance people, and you need to speak their language. So learn Excel. Excel is the program that manages all business, and it's important to understand the dynamics, pivot tables, data. Just know that stuff. You don't just need to know how a light works or how a camera works. Know the business side.
For us, you have to know how to upload videos, which might sound simple, but some people do not know how to upload videos. Just being able to adapt to different programs, because I'm sure every year there's going to be a new advancement in how we share auditions. So
Learn your way around macros of all types. Everything is macro driven now. Technical directing, you're running macros now in sports. You've got a button for everything now. It's all macros that you program yourself when you're in a control room now.
And sorry, one last question. I think it's for you, Miriam. I like the editing side of everything. Are there any third-party applications, like besides Avid, that you use that you think might be useful in knowing?
We do most. I think I think there's some smaller projects that do use Premiere, but the industry standard is the Avid. So that's you probably shouldn't learn that if that's what you want to pursue. Mm-hmm.
That's what Paramount uses.
So I have a question. So what's your favorite productions or your favorite films or television shows that you work on?
What's your favorite
we have to pick favorites.
Yeah.
Whichever one rents the most lighting and grip for me.
Anything with no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to choose. Each experience, comes with a lot of love and a lot of pain. I guess I personally don't have a favorite.
I do. The Kids See Ghosts listening party this past summer was easily, hands down, a favorite. There was a lot of pyrotechnics, really loud music, and it was just really freaking fun. It was also a 26-hour workday.
My favorite was...
Yeah, yes, very much.
That's not
We
union.
need to talk, Natalie.
My
Just for
favorite
me, not for anyone else.
was Love the Coopers, because I trained the dog, and it was the dog that I had raised, and he was a main character. Aww. So it was a Christmas movie.
There was a show many, many years ago on A&E called Good Time Cafe that Bill Rafferty hosted, and we launched the careers of a bunch of unknowns like Ellen DeGeneres, what's his name from Deuce Bigelow, I forget his Scheider, yeah, him. Bobcat Goldthwait. We launched a lot of careers, and it was fun to see them take off. Ricky Martin, Menudo, when they were little 12 or 13-year-olds, we gave him a launch. And we also launched somebody named Terry Hatcher, who just did a little talent thing on our show, and then she got a walk on Love Boat after that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I loved every show that I've really been a part of. I loved being a part of ABC for many years. It gave me the opportunity to do everything, you know. And then I did love the Roseanne show. Always unexpected. Never knew what was going to happen there. So it was part of the fun of the industry.
I'm going to answer in a roundabout way. If given a choice between working in a show that is not as cool with nicer people and a show that seems really great on paper, but you know that the people are not going to be very nice and they're some jerks for sure, pick the show with nicer people to work on.
Yes.
Because you spend so much time with work, and they do become instant families, almost like you become so tight with those people if given the opportunity. For me, the best shows I worked on where the people were really decent people, like very nice. Everybody was hardworking, on top of their game, but it was just like a nice, solid group of people.
As an animal trainer, I totally agree with that because I do a lot of kid shows, and so most of my work is unwatchable for us. Just insipid, but the crews are so nice. So.
I think what's great in my world is, you know, I support all the productions on our lot. So, you know, we have This Is Us, which is a big, you know, big show that, you know, that's always, you know, a great set to go on because I get to go visit all the sets and make sure, you know, my clients are happy. And, you know, Legion is very cool because, you know, most of the TV stuff that we shoot, they shoot them like features now, right? You know, so it's not, you know, the 1 hour shows are they're really, you know, putting a lot into it. So the sets are very dynamic and they shoot them like features. So it's really great.
I worked on Legion. It's like a movie.
Shoot it like a movie. This Is Us is great because they just did a whole Vietnam set, you know, where they went to Lake Piru and, you know, they shot that thing. You know, I put so much equipment on that thing. They're shooting it like a feature. It's great, you know, because content is king. That's what's going on here. So you have to make it look great. So it's all spectacular, you know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Come on down.
I love Paramount because there's always grass for my dogs. I can find grass.
Very good.
This is a good time to say
It's
break a
dog
leg. huh?
friendly. We worked on animal practice.
How you guys doing?
You can form a line.
Hello? Yeah, I just had a quick question. For all the younger people who are like starting out as entrepreneurs, trying to get into the industry, how would you know when you've gotten everything you can out of like an internship? Like, how do you know when there's no more room for growth or when you should move on?
When you start getting a paycheck. No. Gotta have some fun. Well, wow, that's a great question, and it's really tough to answer because you got to listen to your heart, right? I mean, there is no right or wrong answer, and I can't sit here with a straight face and say, well, you know, if this happens, then this can happen and that. Like 1 goes to 2 and 2 goes to 3. That's not how this industry works. You know, a lot of it is instincts, you know. And again, if you're there and another opportunity comes, it's better to take the opportunity and fail than to sit in your same place wondering what if. It's just not worth it.
Amen to that. When I did the Corpus Christi thing, I wasn't going to stay there forever. I got out of there in 10 months. Buffalo, 10 months. Baltimore, 10 months. Came back to San Francisco. When the better offer comes along, it's time to leave the one you've got.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I was staying in the internship going, God, I really need to get paid. I need to, or am I going to have to get a job? What am I going to do? And you stay in it until you get a job, because leaving the internship, what's that going to do? Because you never know what's going to come from it. So my advice would be to stay in an internship until a better opportunity comes along, and then you go. You don't go before you got something else.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
So Miriam, we kind of delved into this question earlier, but I want to get a more definitive answer. So one of the things that the private schools like to brag about, the more expensive ones, is their access to their alumni. Did you feel that the alumni really helped you out, get your internships, get jobs, or would you recommend going to a less expensive school and then not getting into
I
much student debt?
think more than a private versus an expensive or inexpensive school is that while you're there, make the most out of it by making connections. Like that free internship that I said, not that I got working nights in the first show, it was through a professor that I stayed in close touch with. But that professor could have been a professor anywhere if you put on the work while you're a student and impress that faculty member. And then my second job was also somebody that I had worked with. So this room is your peer group right now, you know, like you have Nicole, you have your other professors. So the important thing is like whatever the opportunity you have that is in front of you, you can get that, whether you're going to a private school or to a non-private school. You know? So, but it's just really showing up every day and being really engaged. I think that's the difference.
And there's not any schools that have a better image of themselves so that you decide to hire them. Like let's say you have a choice between a Cal State student or like a USC. It doesn't make a difference.
Okay, I'm gonna shoot myself on the foot, but it's really interesting because I've experienced a lot of times people getting resumes and then they say, oh, this person went to USC, they must be a jerk. You know, I'm not gonna hire the USC student. It's like, and I went to USC, you know? Because I think there are stereotypes that become associated with it, and a lot of times people want to work with good people. It's not just about your degrees. I think, and this is something we haven't talked about, I think the interview is a crucial part of the process, because if you have the credits, like Gary was saying, that you've proven that you're interested and you've done all this stuff, if you get through the door, at the end of the day, it's not the person who has the most stellar college on their resume who's gonna get the job. It's the person who makes the best impression in the room, who seems that is the person is smart, humble, it's really willing to work hard and be a team member. That's the person who's gonna get the job.
And your reel's gonna be on there, right?
Of course.
Yeah, see?
You'll get the break. You have to be ready when you get that break. After I was at that first station for a month, they gave me the keys, director called in sick, I had to direct and switch and run the audio and put the show on the air. You either can do it or you can't. It doesn't matter what the hell your degree says.
And just to add up to that, most of the jobs that I got hired to, because they were through personal recommendation, they never saw my resume. They had no idea where I went to school, you know. I had once somebody hire me and then they wanted me to go on to another gig, so for that they needed my resume for the studio approval. He got it, he ran into my bay and said, you went to USC? Was it worth it at all? You know? I know, because it's so expensive. So if you make good connections and you get in, at some point it stops mattering. It really does.
You know, I know there are a lot of, there are maybe a few people in the theater program here. If there are any people who are interested in acting, honestly, their agents and managers will, most of the time, their biggest pitch to me is, oh, they just graduated from Carnegie Mellon, or they went to Yale school, you know. So there is a little bit of they find it a plus to pitch an actor from one of those schools to us. So just to note that.
Anybody know where that sound is coming from?
No,
Nope.
but it's sure hurting the ears.
Yeah.
Pacemaker.
Thank you.
We'll just continue. Sounds electric.
Did you guys ever go to college and go in for a different major and decide to change it to film, and what was that reason, or entertainment in general?
I spent 3.5 years as a neuroscience and chemistry major. I, really long story short, was taking an acting class here at Moore Park with Suzanne, and she was like, I'm not going to insult your acting ability, but you're a producer. I was like, what are you talking about, Suzanne? But I needed another humanities credit. So she's like, you need to take Nicole's class. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll just do it. And here I am.
I was actually a geology major at the University of Michigan and took a communications class and got an internship right from that communications class at CBS, and then it changed my life forever. Yep, dropped geology in a heartbeat.
I'm a law school dropout. I lasted, I think, less than a month, and then I went to study film. So,
My degree was in journalism, photojournalism, and frankly, the way we now tell stories, news stories, the way we take pictures for news, I might as well have a degree in cave drawing. Nothing I learned is applicable to today's world.
When I was in college before I dropped out, I was commercial real estate was my major, and then history was my minor. And then the rest is history after that, no pun intended.
I averaged 20 units a semester here at Moore Park. I took four semesters of music theory. I took journalism. I took acting. I did everything. And I can't encourage you enough to do everything here at Moore Park, because when you do those upper division courses, you're not going to be doing 20 units anymore. Just do it all while you can here. And all of it relates. Most of the editors I worked with were musicians. I was a musician on the side. I played fiddle with a lot of bands. It all relates. That's the beautiful thing about this field of music, of television and film. All the liberal arts relate to it somehow.
I probably should have gotten a psychology degree personally instead of film. I'm just saying. But you should look at what you're looking to do, because if you want to be an actor, I feel like, yeah, not just acting classes. You got to look at study kind of what you would need, what could be helpful, and take as many different, maybe double major, whatever, to get as much experience as you can while you can.
Just follow your nose, because I'm a guy that wasn't smart enough to get into vet school. And then I came here to Moore Park, and then I got into working in the industry, and then I went back and got my master's degree in film production. So just follow your heart, follow your nose.
Hi. So my question is for Kelly. As a casting director, what do you look for in an actor during an audition?
Oh man, that's a real tough one.
You knew that was gonna come.
I saw a few people today. Let's see. What do I look for? Confidence, and this is kind of my spiel, as I usually say. Biggest part, all I can say is audition. If an actor comes in and my crazy bell goes off, you're not coming on set, because I only get maybe 2 minutes with you if it's like a one-line role, but for the most part we cast a lot of leads, and I might spend 20, 30 minutes with you, depending on how many sides there are, and I need to be comfortable that if I post that person their audition and I say I like them, sometimes my notes are good job, but it's if that director's like, I want that person, and they hire them, they put them on set, and they're like, Kelly, this person is crazy, I'm gonna look bad. I wanna get hired again. So a lot of times in the room, I'm looking for confidence, and whether if you can listen to direction. Because if you treat me like an actor comes in, they go, hey, so can you shoot, where are you gonna have me? Are you gonna do, don't worry about anything. Just come in, know your lines, and treat me as if I'm the person who's gonna direct you, because you're showing me what you would do on set, So the hardest thing that actors, I think, have to realize is they kind of gotta act like, I could take it or leave it, because if you act really desperate, I can smell the desperation, and it's gonna make me like, oh, I don't know if I can trust them on set, That's the sad. Is everybody crushed now? I'm sorry.
That's very realistic.
Thank you.
Last two questions.
Cool. My name is Darian, and I was wondering, have you ever experienced any roadblocks in your career, and how have you overcome it?
It's one big roadblock.
Yeah, that's great. It's one big roadblock.
Have you not been listening?
Yeah. Roadblocks are going to happen all the time, right? There's no secret to success. If anybody tells you, well, this is your way to success, it's not true. It's it's how do you handle the roadblock? Are you going to be reactive, or are you going to be proactive? Oh my God, I can't handle this. Or okay, look at the situation and how do you navigate, around it. Because you will experience, it's all about grit, and that tenacity to just keep going through it, because they're going to happen. Just keep pushing through.
I was there's something my father told me when I was in high school, because I was very depressed because I was never the best at anything. Like, I wasn't best athlete, I wasn't best student, I wasn't the best at anything. And my father said, that's okay. You don't have to be the best at anything. What you have to do if you want to succeed in life is just be the guy that shows up every single day on time, ready to work, and be hungry and be willing to stay late and have a good attitude. And that advice has served me my entire career.
I think one of the biggest roadblocks is financially, because you want to do what you want to, like in my career, it's like when you start out at the bottom of the totem pole, luckily it's a little bit better with minimums, but if you're working on an independent and the casting director doesn't hopefully fight for you to say, no, pay them at least a minimum wage. Like, it's so hard sometimes to fight for enough money to get you through to the next job being freelance. So that's the hardest roadblock, is not giving up.
We're all in a certain place in our careers now, but I went through a time in my career where I only ate when I went to work because there was food there.
The second job's easier to get than the first. The third job's easier to get than the second. But don't go back. When you take a step up, don't go back. Keep moving forward. Take a better job, and then after you've learned as much as you can there, take a better job. Never stop looking for your next job. It doesn't matter whether you're staff or freelance.
And always surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people who get it, who can just lift you up to the next level and be positive. That's what you want. Like attracts like.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Also, even though you're supposed to keep it professional, have you guys ever had like a starstruck moment in your career at all?
Never saw Al Pacino, so no.
Yes, but I feel like this is what I'll say. It's surprisingly, for me, you're starstruck, and I don't know about you guys, but you're starstruck by the people that made an impression on you when you were younger. Because if somebody is a huge star of some Nickelodeon show, I have I don't care, if they're good, then they're good, So yeah, I've been starstruck, but I'd probably be more starstruck by like Betty White,
I get starstruck by athletes just because it's when I saw Shaquille O'Neal at Universal Studios, and I'm like, it looks like they're carrying him and he's walking. It's amazing. And I think the first time I was ever starstruck on set was on Constantine, because I'm a great big nerd, and I was an X-Men nerd, and so I had just seen or re-saw X2, and Nightcrawler was like my favorite X-Men, and then I turned around and Lauren Schuler Donner standing right there, and she was the producer, and I just kind of and that was it. But no, usually it's very at least for me, when I see movie stars or celebrities, either it's weird because they're shorter than you thought, and it's just kind of surreal because like you're used to seeing them in the movies, and they're standing in front of you in 3 dimensions.
But you have to pretend like it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. It's just weird. Like, I look at them like that's weird.
Whoever said the comment about your childhood, I'd say the big stars didn't have as much of an impact as meeting stars from when I was a little kid, like Sherry Lewis. The first time I saw Sherry Lewis, I was, oh my God, Lammy Pie. And she looked almost the same as I remember her as a kid. And in Towson, Maryland, they have the headquarters for a national children's show called Romper Room. And I was doing pilots with different people, but the first pilot I did there, you don't know about Romper Room?
No, they don't.
Well, I saw the same Miss Nancy looking identical to when I was a kid until I found out it's her daughter. It blew my mind. I said, how is this possible? And I'm doing the pilot for another Miss Nancy for the whole country. That's why. Oh, and Vincent Price tells the funniest dirty jokes imaginable, but that's another story.
Actually, I should say that, going back to the childhood thing, it is funny. It's like, I'll meet all these people who are stars, but they became stars during my career. So that's different than when I got to auditioned Mark Paul Gosselaar, and I was like, oh my God, Saved by the Bell. This is so crazy. I can't believe I'm auditioning and directing somebody who I loved watching when I was a kid, you know? I think that's what ends up getting you.
Next question.
I got you right. Thank you.
Last question of the night.
Hi, my name is Nathan. I had a question for the whole panel. Given the rise of the Me Too movement over the course of the past 5 or 6 years, have you noticed any actual changes in the film industry? Or is
it's not just YouTube. It's Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and all that. So the multi-platform thing is here. It's fabulous, you know. And I've been over at Google, you know, in Playa Vista, you know, because again, it's all about relationships. So, real quickly, what birthed that to me was The Sopranos. You know, before it was you wanted to be either an actor in the motion picture industry, and TV wasn't cool. But The Sopranos changed that at HBO, you know, back in the 90s when they were winning Emmys, and now, you know, that led to all this great content. But Netflix and YouTube and Hulu and all that, but YouTube is really going to be the one to watch. Apple, you know, Apple and YouTube, I think, are the two. Great opportunities for you young people too, to go out, you know, go out there and get it.
Learn how to do vertical video. It sucks, but it's where things are at right now. I'm working on my second Snapchat series, which I had no idea until very recently was as big of a deal as it is. There's like multi-million viewers on some of this stuff. It's huge. There's money there, like real money. And if you know how to do it, you're among the first right now. So learn it while you have time to learn it and fail.
I have a question for you. What specifically do you mean when you want to know, like, how YouTube is affected? In what ways?
I meant not YouTube. I was asking about the Me Too movement.
Oh.
Actually, yeah.
You said Me Too movement.
I'm sorry.
We all heard YouTube.
Did he say
I'm
YouTube?
So glad I asked you.
I heard YouTube.
Okay.
I was thinking, I was kind of like,
Okay.
I guess you could use
this
Snapchat
is-
and YouTube for that.
Actually, you know what? The Me Too. Okay, so what I was talking about before, when I was talking about, you know, how we were trying to, it's harder for people to get away with being an a-hole in our business, and that has everything to do with the Me Too part of the movement. So that affects my side of the business for sure, because, you know, I don't know, like in production, it's, I'm not going to get too much into the people and the allegations and all that and how that affected us specifically and how we worked. But I will say it really has gotten people out. You can't. It's harder for people to get away with some of this sleazy stuff with agents and managers and all that. You hear about even now, like, you know, it's like, it'll be like next week and so-and-so's gone. Why? Because they were doing this that was inappropriate. They are cracking down, and that is cleaning out. I mean, it's never going to be completely clean, but it is cleaning out a lot of bad seeds, which is great. So it's been great.
For guys like me that we're below the line, so most of us just like got really angry because the producers we all know what's happening. And we all have to take the extra safety classes and training, and nobody below the line is doing anything because we can get fired. So the producers are the ones that should be taking accountable for that. And so I mean, that for us, we like it. We need it because, as she said, like everybody knows who's misbehaving, and nobody knows why they're not being called on it. So we're happy.
I think in editorial, there's been, because of that, there's more awareness of the disparity. Like I was saying before, there is 70% male, like 30 female. So there's been, I think, a more proactive effort to try to hire more equally and give more opportunities. You know? But we are also, like the shows that I've been working most recently, they are unionized. And because of that, I think there is more safeguards, and that kind of extends to giving us protections too, that, you know, just goes beyond like hours and all that. You know?
Yeah, unions are scary. We're part of the union, and that's why we don't get messed with, because the producers do not want Teamsters on you.
No, and I think one of the best things that's come out of the Me Too movement has become like the protections that are offered to people who do come forward about the things they've seen, things they've witnessed. Obviously, we've got a long way to go, but I think making it safe for people to report what they've seen or what they've encountered is definitely one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle for this.
More women in upper management is having a huge difference. When my favorite general manager, Valerie, took over, she had a meeting with the entire station and said, I will not tolerate abuse by anybody. And several producers and directors, it scared the shit out of them because they'd never been told that before.
Thank you. All right, what do you guys think?